Maxed Out Man, helping you become the man you were made to be.
Hey guys, it's Kevin Davis from Maxed Out Man Podcast. This is episode 9. We're talking to Paul Beam today, which he's got a really cool organization for men. We're doing some really similar things. He's a little bit ahead of us and does things in a different way. So I think this will be really cool and inspiring, and maybe give you guys some opportunity to get involved with what he's got going on. So I'm excited to learn and listen from him. Nice to see you, Paul.
Yes, sir, Kevin. Pleasure to be here. It's an honor.
Hey,
Thank you for having me.
You've got a few more podcasts under your belt than I do, so this will be pretty easy for you. But if you want to just kind of run through who you are, your organization. I know you've got a lot going on right now with your weekends. You just launched your new journal, some other stuff. So let's just we can talk through each one, but kind of give me the 60,000 foot view first, so we can kind of understand who you are.
Sure, yeah. So as far as Paul Beam is concerned, just I consider myself a regular guy, just out there trying to make an impact in the world. We're a blended family, so married with 5 children. We have 2 stepdaughters and three sons. The age ranges are 15 up to 22.
Oh, wow, you're still in the thick of it.
Yeah. So we have 2. Well, I've got 1 senior. He'll be graduating this year, and then of course we got 2 8th graders that will be high schoolers next year. So yeah, still a lot of life left, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So we live in Texas, and I started True North Man about 7 years ago now. I guess it was 2015 when I first started hosting my events, specifically for men. And the reason why I started my events was because I just needed to be around men. I needed to learn from other men who were doing good things in life, living in an honorable manner, and men that I admired and respected. And so I was trying to take groups of men to different men's events, but it just got to where it seemed like it was kind of difficult to find these events. They were too far away, and so I couldn't really get men to go with me. And so my wife and I at that time had 12 acres out in Florence, Texas, and I just said we'll just host our own event. And so,
and what kind of events were you going to before? Where were you? I know they're
yeah, just your regular, men's events. Columbus, Texas. There's a cool men's advance out there. The Birchfields host that one. And it's cool. They have guest speakers come in and they talk about spiritual matters and do some praise and worship, and you get to hang out with men. But I just felt like I could create something that was that would take men more on the experiential realm, right? So,
okay, yeah.
Like let's actually immerse ourselves in this weekend, and that's where the transformation comes in. Not just listening to someone, and certainly I believe we can listen to people, we can learn things, and we can apply those to our lives, right? Or we can listen to people and we can be inspired, and then we aspire to be better, which motivates us to change how we're functioning in life, right? But I just felt like, for me personally, as a man who has this shady past and has suffered the consequences, and has also seen other people suffer the consequences of my same mistakes, I just felt I knew that for me, I needed more of an immersive environment. I needed to be I need to be able to take action in the moment so that it truly sinks in. Whatever I'm learning, whatever I'm hearing, it truly sinks in. It's not just in my notebook that I'm going to set on the shelf when I get home. I'm actually living it out and applying it in the moment, right? And so that's what I started doing. I just started creating an event, and I won't say it was intentional. It was all intentional at first. one of the first questions I asked when I first created the event was, what do men want? Right. And so I just started thinking to myself, and I thought, well, I am probably my own audience, right?
Right.
And so, what do I like? What would draw me into an event? And I'm kind of different in the fact that I like to try different things. I like to experience different events. I like different styles, and so like I can go sit at an event where you just have speakers talking to you the whole time, and I can take notes, and I feel like I can learn and I can grow from that, and I enjoy that. That's just someone created that. They use their creativity, and that works for certain people, you know. And so I've just kind of taken all these different styles and put them together. But at the end of the day, as I was doing that, knowing I wanted it to be an immersive event, I really just started asking, what do I like? I like outdoor stuff. So I don't want men to come to a cabin and sleep in a cabin all weekend in the comfort of a bed. Like, I want men to be uncomfortable for a little bit because I like being uncomfortable. I like being in nature. Nature is medicine for me.
Yep.
Um, and so that was one component of it. Plus, it was like, okay, well, how much money do I really have to invest in this up front? So some of it was out of necessity, right? It's like, well, I can't go rent a big lodge. I can't just put that money down up front for a group of 30, 40, 50 men. So let's scale it back and let's get back to our roots. Let's be cavemen for a little bit, right?
Yeah,
So
everybody bring your own tent and sleeping bags. Probably a little cheaper than a big lodge, right?
yeah, exactly. You know, and so yeah, so what do men want, right? And then so I started thinking, okay, well, men love food, so we'll cook, we'll barbecue. Men like music, so we'll have someone come out with a guitar and we'll do some music. And we like to compete, right? Whether it's poker, whether it's outdoor activities, football, um, shooting, whatever. Now we don't do a whole lot of poker stuff, but that's not my style, right? Like I
Yeah.
said, I started creating this event for me, and so we do stuff. We'll do 3-gun competitions. We do skeet competitions. Um, we do blind stuff like blind dodgeball, tug of war, hatchet throwing. At our old property, we had built an obstacle course, so we actually had an obstacle course as well. And so that's all stuff that I enjoy. And I figure, okay, well, I'll just find other men who enjoy the same stuff. At the end of the day, I think what I have found is that even men who do not feel like they enjoy camping or competition, once they come to the event because one of their friends or someone has talked them into it, and they finally just say, all right, I'll go. They get out there and they just come alive. They're like, oh my gosh, like, I don't like camping, but this is awesome. You know, and so it's
Yeah.
still a transformative experience for them. And that's kind of the cool thing. And then I started asking myself, after I figured out what men want, what'll draw men in, I started asking myself, okay, what do men need? And so what do I need? Um, I need community. I need accountability. I need mentors. I need mentorship. And at the same time, I need to lead. I need to be a mentor myself for other people because I have life experiences that even if I don't feel like I'm fit to lead others or like I have the credentials, the reality is we're all leaders or we can all be leaders or we are all leaders, right? It's just we're
Yeah.
leading people either for the good or for the bad, right? And so we have to figure out what kind of leader do we want to be. And so those are the kind of things that I knew I needed and that I knew other men needed. And so then you just figure out, okay, well, how do you provide what they want and what they need?
Right.
And so that's kind of been the journey of what we call Man Camp. That's our event. Um, over the last several years, and we continue to refine it. We continue, and I continue to learn and grow. Right? I mean, I can't tell you how much heartache I've been through with staffing or with board members. It's been a very exhausting and painful experience. But at the end of the day, it's also been very rewarding, right? It's that double-edged sword. It's like you're serving your purpose. You're on mission. You're in the trenches, and if it truly is your mission and you're passionate about it, and that seed has been planted in your heart, you'll stay the course, regardless of how rough the seas get.
Mm-hmm. And you have a military background, right?
I do, yeah.
You have a military background, which is, what the camaraderie. I had a buddy of mine that is on a couple of days ago. We recorded, and he was a military veteran, a couple of tours in Iraq, kind of PTSD and some of those kind of things. But it seems like that's a natural, that camaraderie of being a soldier. Is that something that you try to bring? Not necessarily the military aspect in particular, but is that something you try to bring to your man camps?
Yeah, I think camaraderie, I think community is an innate part of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're created as human beings to live in community and to be relational.
Yeah.
And so let's just take it outside of the military perspective. I think we still yearn for that. We still desire that. But then I believe the military, what you learn in the military is there's just a whole different level of camaraderie. And literally it's different because in one sense, what we're doing in creating camaraderie, we're creating suffering and the battle and
Mm-hmm.
everything that you've got to go through together during this weekend, which is helping you build that camaraderie, right? But it's just on a deeper level because we're talking intellectual, we're talking spiritual, we're talking, mental, we're talking physical, everything in one. Whereas in the military, your camaraderie is like, hey, like we've got each other's backs.
Right.
Like there's a possibility we're going to die here.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what the military oftentimes misses is the more intimate side of it. Like, hey, how's your wife doing? How's your marriage? How are your children? I think that the military camaraderie kind of misses that component.
Right.
So I think if the military could bring that in, they would have a whole new level of warrior or soldier. Whereas us taking the military component of, hey, we're going to do battle together, and this is life or death,
Mm-hmm.
right? And literally life, even in the civilian world, is life or death oftentimes. You may not be may not be getting shot at, but the reality is there's lots of men out there who are battling addictions. They're battling depression or anxiety. They're battling suicidal ideation or tendencies even. They're attempting suicide and so on and so forth. And so let's do battle together, right? And that's what we bring out to our events is let's do battle together. Let's talk about the battles we're facing. Welcome me into your battle. Allow me to be your battle buddy.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I can speak life into a certain area of stuff that you have going on, something that you have going on, or if nothing else, I can at least be there to lend an ear. Because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is just listen to someone, let them vent, and let them know that we empathize with them, and that just because they have something that's on their heart and their mind that's eating them up, we're not going to judge them for that, right? Because oftentimes the reason why men don't care to share what's going on is because they're worried about how others are going to perceive them.
Right.
And so that's a big thing out of our events as well, is just like, hey, come as you are. And you're going to drop, even, I think it's even on my website, like drop the tough guy act, drop your armor, open up, be who you are. Because really the bravery, the courage, the strength really comes in when you're being vulnerable at the right times in the right fashion.
Yeah. I don't think vulnerability is something that comes very natural to men at all, as you've probably seen. How does that kind of get, what do you guys do to kind of spur on that vulnerability? Because I know, it's, what do they call it? Getting blood from a stone for a lot of us. Yeah. I'm interested in how that process might work.
Yeah. So we lead by example. Well, first of all, when guys are coming through the gates, we just let them know, hey, like there's no There's no boundaries, right? Like you come fully who you are. Drop everything in the outside world, drop it at the gate. And then while you're here, we're going to have real conversations. We let them know that at the beginning. But then the thing that we impress upon our speakers, it starts with the speakers, is are you being vulnerable in what you're presenting? Are you talking about your life? Or are you just preaching and teaching to people? We don't do that at our events. We share what's going on in our life as well from the stage. And we help men see how we are navigating what we're going through in our life. And so, and then we for each event, we also assign squad leaders. And so for the last, I guess, 4 months, we've already had squad leaders in place. We have meetings, we have trainings, we do hikes together, stuff like that. And so the leaders, the squad leaders who are going to be um, leading a group of probably 5 or 6 men, uh, they understand as well that when they're in that circle, when it's small group breakout time,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's time for you to lead by example and open up as well, because that's what's going to get every other man in your group to open up, is by you opening up. And not every man is suffering and struggling with some great degree or huge degree of, of problems
Yeah.
in their life,
Yeah.
right? And we understand that. That's okay, you know. But you would be, it's very surprising how just a little bit of vulnerability oftentimes gives the next man, the man that's next to you, enough courage to open up a little more.
Yeah.
And then the next man beside him to open up a little more. And then before you know it, everybody's just, they're just pouring it out, you know, and no one judges. No one judges. And we're also not here to fix people. We're not counselors. Um, you know, we're not here to fix people, and we teach our leaders that as well. Is like, dude, just let these guys talk. And if there's someone in the circle with a little bit of wisdom, a little bit of feedback, cool. We're not here to fix
Yeah,
anyone.
because it's that interaction probably that's more quote unquote therapeutic than some leader
Yeah.
talking. Right.
Yeah, yeah, and there is, you know, the men do have options afterward. You know, do you want to engage in some sort of mentorship program or some sort of coaching, and so that's where I would come in, and on the tail end, they have the option to enter a coaching program as well if they'd like to. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a buddy of mine that was 92 on one of my podcasts a few weeks ago, and he was talking about the importance of mentorship,
Mm-hmm.
kind of what's missing there, and uh, how would you? So if a guy is not involved with the organization, obviously we we'd love for everybody to be a part of it, at least reach out and see what's going on. If someone's just in their daily life, how do you see? How would you encourage them to look for those mentorship opportunities, both as a mentor and a mentee? I know that's a big part
Mm-hmm.
of what you guys do.
Yeah, yeah. So that's interesting. That's the interesting thing. It's because it's not like I don't believe it's a one size fits all,
Right.
right? Like, but I do believe that the one thing we have to do is we have to maybe pick out a handful of men, and even that is hard sometimes. Picking out a handful of men that are ahead of us in life, and so they're an elder per se, right? I would say probably 50 or above.
That's me.
Um,
I'm the
'Cause
mentor ideal
yeah,
customer,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, there you go. But someone that you respect. You look at all the different aspects of their life. Okay, how's this man doing financially? How's he doing spiritually? How is he doing relationally? How is he doing physically? And if you admire the way that that man is living, then you just approach him. Say, hey, look, like I've got a lot to learn in life,
Mhm.
and I'm just wondering if maybe you and I could meet up. I'd love to pick your brain some. And I think that the best mentorship takes place organically. When you establish a relationship with someone that is trusting, right? And I think mentorship too is more about doing life together, not just having a meeting together. It's like, hey, do we hang out and barbecue? Do we go, do we go to the pub and have a beer without getting drunk and out of hand? Do we go, you know, do we have poker night together or something? I don't know. Whatever men do, right? Do
Right.
we go shoot together? It's more about doing life together and establishing, because there again, you have to establish trust and camaraderie. And with that comes respect, right? And so I would say for those looking for a mentor, you have to find a few guys and really just um, look at their life and figure out who you want to enlist in your circle. And it doesn't have to be just one.
Yeah.
You can enlist multiple people in your circle to help you through things, or just to look up to. You can learn things from men just by being around them
Yeah.
and seeing how they operate. That's the cool thing. That's mentorship at its finest, right? Like, I'm going to watch you. I hang around you enough that I can actually see what your habits are.
Mhm.
I can actually see what your behaviors are. And then I can mimic those. I can emulate those. I can fine tune them.
Yeah.
And then for men who want to mentor young men, I would say just keep your head on a swivel. Like, there's plenty of young men out there who need mentorship. They may not even know that they need mentorship. They may not be looking for mentorship. But if you see someone, if you see a young man that you're like, you know what, like, he's got a lot of potential. I want to help this kid out or whatever, and you don't have to, it's not like you're looking down on anyone. But you're just saying, like me, for instance, like, I look at 20-year-olds or young men in their 20s, and like, I'm always thinking, all right, like, I don't want this young man to experience the same things that I experienced in my 20s. I don't want them to make the same mistakes. And so, like, for me to just reach out to them and have a phone conversation,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then maybe have a coffee or go to lunch, just check in and just see if it organically takes place. But the last thing you want to do is go to someone, at least in my mind, if they're not looking for a mentor or they don't know they need a mentor, last thing you want to go do is say, "Hey, young man, you want a mentor?
Yeah. That's
I think
just
I could be
that's
your
just
mentor."
creepy.
Yeah. So, and I think just living by example, right? And we're all learning and growing.
Mhm.
We're all learning and growing. Even some of these 60, 70-year-old men, 92, look, 92, golly, that guy's still kicking, still mentoring, probably,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Still being an example. And so it's
We've
just living by
determined he'll
example.
outlive all of us somehow. I don't. This guy he's amazing. Stay fit, and I mean, the biggest thing for him is he stays fit, and so that makes him physically
Yeah.
fit, mentally fit. He was a pastor for 40 years, so yeah,
Oh my goodness.
he's definitely a good guy.
Yeah. Being a pastor for 40 years, man, that's got to be,
Yeah, it's
man.
yeah. He's told some stories which have been interesting. I'm curious, when you're talking about these younger guys. One of the things I think that's challenging for young men is so much of today's society is telling them, kind of, and I probably mentioned this on every podcast, but uh, telling them it's not great. It's not good to be a man, right? Like, you're the enemy. Question everything. You may not even be a man. All of that weird crap that's going on now. How do you find, and also the social anxiety and everything that's going
Mhm.
on? Are you getting some of these young guys involved in what's going on? And I'm interested to hear, um, does the general perception that these young guys don't want to be around other guys or other people, does that hold true, do you think?
Oh, man, that's
I mean, you've got boys that age, right? You've got boys in that age group,
yeah,
I would guess.
yeah. Uh, and I graduated from Concordia University in 2017. Um, and I was also around quite a few young men at that time.
Hmm.
But uh, And so what you're asking is, have I seen a trend or a pattern of younger men not wanting to engage in a community of other men?
Yeah, I'm interested to see if that kind of that stereotype that I think, especially people in my age, kind of see as the younger generation is, sit in their houses and don't want to talk to anybody, and struggle with what being a man looks like, and kind of interested to dispel
Mhm.
some of those stereotypes if you can. And I don't, that's why I'm asking the question. 'Cause you have experience in that. With I,
Sure. Yeah, I definitely feel like younger men in their 20s
Mhm.
nowadays, right nowadays, um, are a little more, what do I want to call it? They're a little more
Right.
reclusive,
Hmm.
right? But I don't know if it's because that's all they want or desire. I think it's because that's all they
Yeah.
know. Because technology has become such a powerful force in our lives, right? All they have to do is uh, jump on TikTok or Twitter or Instagram, to quote unquote
Right.
communicate, or make friends. But at the same time, that's very
Hmm.
superficial. And then, these video games now, where you can play live these video games, you can actually put your headphones on and play the game together and have live conversation, interaction, through these video games. And so I have seen, you know, technology really take a toll on us, even as older or middle aged people, right? Um, we have a tendency to use our phones a lot. And I think that keeps us indoors a lot
Yeah.
more as well. So we're not as active outside. And no longer are the days of riding bicycles for hours on end, or building clubhouses out of tree branches that we break
Yeah.
out of the trees and stuff like that. Um, but I think what I found is these young men, you just don't know what you don't know. So once you expose them and introduce them to it, I personally feel like it breathes
Yeah. And
life into
that's,
them,
I think
like it
I
ignites
love that you
something
say you
new.
don't know what you don't know. What's interesting is that I remember back in the early days of Halo, first person, kind of the original big, not really most popular first person shooter game back then. We would have youth group parties, and we had like 4 TVs and 4 Xboxes. So there was no
Hmm.
such thing as Xbox Live or whatever. We would actually you'd have
Right.
these TVs set up back to back and all that. So we were actually playing a video game, but in the same room. I'm not much of a gamer now, um, but I just I find it interesting that that's we still had that camaraderie in the same room. But I love how you say that you don't know what you don't know. My daughter has some social anxiety stuff. She's 23, 20, or she's 24, and I think pretty much everybody in her age group kind of has a lot of that. But and she was very reclusive, but then she got restationed. They're a military family, um, and they now have a group of about 8 to 10 friends that are all part of the military family, and they literally do everything to. And it's like, hey, I would
Hmm.
never have guessed that you would take this step, and this would be your life. It's every day of life now, and so
Hmm.
it's like once you introduce some of these younger people to what that can look like, I think that maybe it's something that they can lean into and learn that this is actually something.
Yeah, yeah, and so that being said, I mean, like our youngest daughter, she suffers from social anxiety, and I truly believe it is
Mm-hmm.
technology related. It's like you're on that phone all day, every day. You're on a video game all day, every day. Yes, you interact with people, but it is digitally, which is much different than being face to face with someone and feeling their presence, their true presence. There's just, and I'm sure there's like scientific study and social experiments and all this that would prove this. I don't have any, I haven't done any, but I would imagine that feeling someone's presence is much different than just you and I sitting here through a video
Yeah.
screen right now. Like if we were having this conversation face to face, we would feel another
Right.
level of
Absolutely.
connection, not in a
Right.
weird way.
I
Right?
mean,
But-
I might want to try to hold your hand. I don't know, but you're totally right. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and so the more we do this and the less we get face to face with people, the more we're going to be anxious when we get around other people, especially large groups of people, or especially people that we really look up to, right? Or people who we perceive as doing big things, because now all of a sudden we're like, oh, look at this person. So now it becomes a comparison game, and that invokes even more anxiety,
Yeah.
right? And so now, once we get around these people and we have conversations with them face to face, now we can start learning from them. Now we actually feel like we're a part of them and they're a part of us. Feel like we're actually getting to know each other, right? Especially the people who are more influential or more wise, have more knowledge, or doing things that we look up to. We get to learn from them.
Yeah.
And grow in that arena, in that atmosphere, versus just watching them speak to a camera on
Yeah.
a live, or even worse, a recording, where we just order a digital class or something and they're talking to us. Just, it's been recorded. They're saying this exact same thing, the exact same way to thousands of people because it's been recorded.
Yeah.
You
Which,
know?
I mean, there's a place for that, for education and kind of spurring that. But
Absolutely, yeah.
I think what's interesting about what's happening with our, with that human interaction versus electronic interaction is that, I mean, we even have it like that's an avatar is a fake representation of yourself digital, and you can be whatever and whomever you want to be in that. So I think the fear for so many young people is like,
Yeah.
I can't filter any of that information goes out from me as an actual real person, live person. So it's a totally different
Yeah.
experience, because you can't, unless you're one of the weirdos that walks around with a literal mask over their head. You see those people walking around, but I mean, if you go have lunch with someone and go have coffee or whatever, you actually have to be there in person, look eye to eye, hopefully, and have a real connection.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So my situation, I'm interested based on what your experience is. So here's one of the challenges that I face, and I think a lot of guys do. I live in Montana. I'm actually used to hunt. I used to fish. I used to play golf. I'm more of an entrepreneur now, so I do a lot of business stuff. But we travel a ton. I don't really have friends locally. All my friends are all over the world. So this is interesting to your point that most of my relationships, other than maybe once a year, twice a year at a different event, are digital like this or on the phone. Right. And so, because one of the challenges that I have is that I am so not a fit for 99% of the men that I'm around here locally. It's just really difficult to connect. And maybe that's a personal issue on my part that I'm not putting the effort in. But for those guys that might be out there that face similar situations, any advice for that? I mean, for one thing, for me, I'm a hot rod. I'm a car guy. I build cars. We build Jeeps. We race Jeeps and cars. If I want to have a car show or go to a car show, I literally have to go set a chair out in my shop and go look at my car, because there's just there's not a car culture where I live. I grew up in Oklahoma, where on Friday night, you go to the Sonic and everybody's got their hoods open, and this would have been back in late 80s or 90s. But You don't get that where
Mhm.
we. So it's like I'm like a round. What do they call a square peg in a round hole when it comes to male relationships? Where
Yeah.
um, so just I'm interested in your perspective on that because I know I can't be the only. I hope I'm not the only one out there that face this. Uh,
Yeah. 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 So I think there's a couple things that come to mind as you're talking about that. I think um so so you, for instance, traveling all the time, all over the
mhm,
US, all over the world, whatever. Um we have to understand that you're probably
right.
a minority in that regard. Um so most men aren't in that situation where they're flying all over, they have friends all over. And so the reality is, we have to figure out how to make it work where we're at. So let's say there's a guy in Montana where you're at, and they're like, "Well, I'm a square peg in a round hole. I don't know how to fit in here." Well, then you have to think outside the box. So how are you going
Mhm,
to establish relationships? Are you going to find men's events and attend those men's events? And with that, like, let's say there's only, you find a men's event and they only host it once a year. So you're like, well, okay, I can go be face to face with men once a year. Okay, well, maybe maybe
right.
find a couple different events that you really like and go to those events and like kind of make that part of your identity. Is, hey,
Yeah.
I'm an adventurer. Like, I go out, I'm an explorer. I explore different events. I meet different people. I meet new people. And I think eventually you'll kind of pave your own path to finding those people that you relate to. Um, and I think we need to go back for just a moment to the digital aspect. Like, I think too much of
Mhm,
anything is bad, right? And so there's always a middle ground. Like, there's nothing saying that you and I cannot form a good relationship by having a Riverside
right.
or a Zoom conversation. You know, we can, we certainly can, but at some point, I would hope that you and I, spend a weekend
Sounds like I
together,
need to come to man
hanging
camp, right?
out.
Is that
You know,
what?
absolutely, yeah, yeah. We got one coming up at the end of the month. So I think there's a time and a place for each, and I think they both serve their
Mhm,
purpose. I think you said that earlier. Um, but at some point, we cannot let our
right.
circumstances
I
be our
like that.
excuse to not engage. Right. So you've got to figure it out. And sometimes finding someone that's just willing to have that conversation with you and help you brainstorm is
Mhm,
one of the best things you can do. Like, hey, man, like, I'm in this situation. I'm out here and there's no one around. We're really remote. I feel like I just don't fit in. I have different desires in life, a different vision for my life.
yeah.
But this is where I live. Okay, well, let's think through that. Let's figure out how you can surround yourself with some other people that you
Mhm,
could consider your inner
yeah.
circle. Because there's ways, right? It may require time. It may require travel. Like, it sounds like you've kind of got it down. You've got friends in many places, and you probably do a combination of both. When you're in town, you give them a holler
Yeah.
and you visit. Otherwise, you're having a conversation through video like this, and I don't believe that there's anything wrong with that. I believe that we can have good relationships like that. But the thing is, we have to be creative with it and
And
be
authentic,
intentional
I
with it
think that's the
still.
big thing. I think so much of us. So like if I have a Zoom call or even a phone call with a buddy of mine, I mean that's an authentic relationship that I have. He's in, one of my best friends is in Southern California, car guy. So we talk about business. He's an entrepreneur too, so we talk business and cars and family. And I asked him, "How's your marriage going? How's your kids doing?" Because he's got young kids, and so that authenticity, I think, has to evolve somehow. And I think, like to your point, at some
Mhm.
point, it would you need to maybe get on a plane, take a car ride or whatever to go have that face to face and one relationship.
Yeah, yeah. And furthermore, I would say that oftentimes we may not
Yeah.
vibe with people, but it's always good if we can adapt, right? If we maybe we don't vibe with the people in our community, but that doesn't mean that we
Yeah.
can't get to know them better and understand where they're coming from.
Mhm.
We can make that an experiment, right? Like, okay, like I don't feel like doing this, but I'm gonna try to have a coffee a week with Joe, and then a coffee a week with Bill, and then a coffee a week with
Yeah. Yeah.
Bob, like, and just get to know those guys. Like maybe they're a farmer and a rancher, but that's not your thing, you know.
Yeah.
But you can learn from them. They've they've they're I promise you they're human, and
Yeah.
they know a
Absolutely.
thing or two. So
Yeah.
what can we learn from those people, right? And then people start. It may not be that is your go-to crowd, but it may be that at some point you become their go-to person for something. Like Joe, Bob, Bill, maybe they're a farmer rancher that you don't vibe with, but at some point they're like, "Hey, Paul, man, I sure do enjoy having coffee with Paul. It seems like he always brings a,
Mm.
a fresh set of ideas, or he's always willing to listen to me talk about, my fear of losing my cattle to this or
Yeah.
that, and my money problems, or whatever it is, So um, the reality is, we're not going to be able to call on everyone that we meet in our lives, But if we can be the person that people can call on in their life,
Yeah.
well, then we're in a good place, because at the end of the day, it's not about us. It's about how can we edify and
Yeah.
uplift
And I
those
think
around
that
us.
it's interesting because I think that speaks a lot to what's missing with what's going on in our society now. 'Cause there's such a divisive environment that if we can, I mean, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna go to some, rally that is completely opposite of everything I believe. However, if I can have a conversation with someone that may not believe everything I believe, we have some things in common, connection, to additional too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The other thing I just thought of is like you in your situation. I don't know if you live on acreage or what, but
Yeah.
like me, I had 12 acres, and I said, all right, I'm just going to try to invite a bunch of men out here. I mean, the first time was 12 to 15 guys, one evening. I don't even think they were all there at the same time. They kind of came and went. Um, but that was my first event. I just said, all right, we're gonna do some campfire songs. We're gonna share what's going on in life around the campfire, and we're gonna eat.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much it. It was really simple, and so now it just turned into something where every year people know Paul Beam is hosting a man camp event, and so I just created that on my own. So it may be that, like,
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
Montana is a
Yeah.
beautiful place
Oh, you
from
have
what
to
I
come
know. I've
visit.
never been there.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, you may have an area out there that you can invite people to on an annual basis, and then people know that Kevin Davis is hosting the Max Out Man
Yeah. Yeah.
retreat once a year.
And
And
one
they
of the things
come
we're
to
looking
you
at
once a
doing
year.
now, which is actually even smaller, and this is, maybe something other guys can do, is so we've got an organization, a guy from our church leads an organization called Greater Impact, and they have multiple facets to the organization, but one of the things they do is they help people fix their cars. So, like for me as a car guy, my
Hmm.
wife's a car girl. We want to get involved in that. They do a kind of a monthly fix it night to where people can bring their cars in, and guys that are mechanics, like myself, shade tree mechanics, and even above, but we'll help these people get their cars fixed, and they're also allow you to kind of work on your own cars. So we're building a very large shop. We've been fortunate, and I have a car lift, all the tools that you want. So we're thinking about actually hosting some of those events here, or hosting kind of, they do it
Nice.
farther away, and so we're actually talking about hosting one on this side of the valley. And so that would be something where people would be able to come in and do some stuff, but build that camaraderie around something that we both really enjoy, which is car. Um, we are part of the gun club here, which is, we don't do a lot of event type stuff, but that's an area that we may be able to do it. So the
Mhm.
point is that you have hobbies, and there's got to be at least a handful of other men that like those things, even though it may not be obvious. So reaching out and trying to
Yeah.
find those connections um, is a good way to. And I do like the idea of doing. I've got 5 acres, um, and having some sort of. My wife wants to have some welding events here. She does welding, so but I think that'll be all women. So I don't know
Oh,
if we
yeah.
can do maxed out man women's welding, but who knows?
Yeah,
Yeah,
5 acres is plenty to host something. I mean, I think on our first property, we only used half of it. We had 12 acres, but we only used about 5 of it
yeah,
for everything that we did. That's events, that's the campsite area. That's
yeah.
really all
That's a
you
good
need
idea.
to host a good
Something I
size
need to
event.
look into. But that's good. That I think for most men, I think we're lazy when it comes to relationships. I know I am personally. I think that's something that I have
Mhm.
to put as much effort into. Um, because most of my relational energy goes into my marriage and my kids. So there's
Mhm.
not a lot left when it's at the end of the day. But I think that it's something I need to spend more time not only developing new ones but fostering the ones that I do have. So I think that's
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's always a good idea to look at your immediate circle when you start thinking about, okay, what kind of relational equity do I have in with people around me? What kind of energy do I have to pour into this? And so there's relationships that we've already established. To your point, that um, quite frankly, we've
hmm
become a little
hmm
lackadaisical or lazy with those relationships. And so to go back and evaluate our current circle and say, okay, who do I want to pour more energy into right now? And I would say it needs
yeah
to be mutually beneficial though, right? I think once you start talking about pouring energy into other relationships that are going to take away possibly from your family or your businesses, but that's the other thing, right? Like, okay, like uh, it, it's almost counterintuitive. Well, what is the word I'm looking
yeah
for? Paradoxical. It's like in one sense we're like, well, if I create this relationship and I spend the energy that is required to create this relationship over here, it might
hmm
hinder my performance of business or my performance at home. When in reality, oftentimes that relate do it spending the time to do that may actually
yeah
multiply your performance, and improve your performance in the other areas that you think that it's actually going to hinder. So a lot of times we have to ask ourselves those questions, because we tell ourselves these stories, or we hear these things and we repeat them to ourselves, um, but it's not always true. So we have to carefully consider, and weigh the good, the bad, the indifferent,
Yeah,
of
and I think
where our
it's
energy is
important. One that we
going.
do a lot of marriage counseling, or have done in the past. We're actually getting ready to start 2 new mentoring relationships, couple to couple, which is great because people uh, kind of see what we've done in our marriage. These both of these couples sought us out, which I think is cool. But we talk about in that circle, make
Hmm.
sure you have friends that are friends of your marriage. And I think that in that context, it's like you don't, if you have friends that are single guys that like to go party and womanize and all those things, that's that may not be a relationship that you want to lean too heavily on unless you're in a relationship where
Yeah,
you can facilitate better choices by that person. My wife and I, we don't
yeah,
really do like a bunch of girls nights out where they go to the bar and all that. We don't do guys' nights out on that same thing. We have events that are separate, obviously. Like you're talking, but um,
hmm,
I think that goes for business and your hobbies and your family and all of that. Like you, meeting new and interesting people is great, but as far as developing these long-term relationships, you do want. I think it's more edifying, to use a big word, to kind of find people that support what the things in your life. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. They have to
yeah,
be in
yeah.
the same stage of life and kind of have the same ideas, the same values.
Yeah, because I think for us, like
Mhm.
we're our kids are both gone. We've been married for almost 28 years, and so like our relationship with these two young couples that have new babies is not going to be the same as a relationship with other empty nesters.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to find
Hmm.
those and foster relationships. And I was thinking too when you were talking about that having our new coffees with three new guys a week, if you already have good relationships that are stagnant or you've been lazy about, that's also a great place to start. Uh, and whether they're like mine, where it just
Yep.
means I need to be more adamant about having phone calls and texts and checking in and all that, or actually just getting together in person if it seems to be something.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Are those the mentoring relationships that you and your wife are going to be working with? Is that
No, they're here
long
locally. They go
distance
to our
or is that
church. Two
local?
young couples. We're going to kind of bring them in, and we'll
Okay.
sit and talk. And the nice thing when you do that, if you happen to be in a healthy marriage, if you have younger couples that you can reach out to, they're lost. I mean, I remember too when we were in our early 20s, we had got married at 22, which is probably considered pretty young now, but we had no idea what the hell we're doing. We didn't know about
Mhm.
the kids, the husbands. As a husband, I especially had no idea, and a new father. One of the guys that's going to be coming and talking to us. We've had dinner a couple of times. And I try to call him out. I'm like, dude, you're full of crap. what you're talking about makes no sense whatsoever. You need to, and here's some things to,
Wow.
he's a bit of a workaholic, uh, and so having conversations with him to say, look, man, you gotta. I know that brings a lot of uh, satisfaction for you and self-esteem and all that, but you've got to figure out a way to find that same satisfaction in your they've got-
Mhm.
and that's again a great record. I think a good example of what our role is as a mentor for younger guys. And I mean, and maybe it's not like this guy's 20 years old. He's in his 30s, but he's in a different stage. So
Mhm.
I think she's
Yeah,
super.
yeah. Yeah, and that brings up another good point. Is anyone that we consider being in any kind of mentorship relationship with or mentoring relationship with, uh,
Yeah,
they have to be open and receptive. They have to be a good student and willing to learn. And because some people that they may think or may say that they want to learn or be different, do different, whatever. But the reality is, once you get to know them a little more, you understand that one of their downfalls is
yeah.
they're really not a good
Yeah, with
student.
me, I can be a little bit abrasive.
So,
I'm pretty to the point. Like I'm a no BS pragmatic kind of guy. It's like if you're doing something that I believe that is detrimental to the situation at hand, I'm going to tell you. So we'll figure out pretty quickly whether or not we're a good fit for the most part. Uh, but yeah, you definitely have to be
that's
open and
good.
honest to what others have to bring to you. So I'm can you just we I asked this of all my guests that have sons, and your situation is a little bit different because you have a blended family, which I think is challenging for a lot of people. Tell me give me
Hmm.
just a little bit of advice that we can share with guys that are listening to this that might be raising sons, because like I raised two daughters. God gave me daughters because I'm not sure He knew that I needed them, and He knew that they needed me. So that's a different kind of relationships.
Hmm.
You've got five, so you've got three sons and two daughters. Is that what you said? So you've got both.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but I never had the opportunity to raise sons. And so I don't really have that experience. And now I can't imagine trying to raise kids at all, but especially young men, trying to teach them how to. So I'm interested in your perspective.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Yeah.
Just
What
on
would you
raising
tell
young men in
guys?
general.
What would you kind of tell guys
Yeah.
about that if you were up, on stage at one of your man camps?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say for me, one of the things that I've been learning over the last several years is just the importance of my sons knowing that I'm proud of them. Uh, that I'm proud of them and that I'm available for them. Because in my relationship with my boys is a little different, simply because uh, we are a blended family, and my sons lived with their
Okay.
mother. She was the primary, and so they lived with her. So I have been in this situation where I have been trying to make up for lost time, and really trying to establish a relationship with my sons because I
Yeah.
missed out on so much with them. And the thing that I just keep coming back to is they just need to know I'm proud of them when they do good. And the other thing is when I tell them I'm proud of them, I don't tell them I'm proud of them for doing good. I tell them I'm proud of them for
Yeah.
the hard work they put in that produced the results. So it's always I'm proud of you for your hard
Yeah.
work. You know, you win a game, you do this, you do that, and then I love them. Like I think too many men, I don't know, but I feel like men may have a little bit of reservation when it comes to like letting your
Yeah.
sons know you love them. Like they need some love, um, and they need to know you're proud of them, and they need to know you're available.
Yeah.
Because the world is hard right now. It's a tough place. These kids are going through so much stuff as they navigate school and childhood. There's so much information coming at them that is so confusing, and they need to know that we're present and that we're available to discuss things. Which is another important thing is our kids. I believe our kids should feel comfortable
Mm-hmm.
to come to us with anything. If they have to hide something from us, there's a reason why they have to hide something from us, and it is probably
Right.
because of our parenting style. That's just my belief. Like there should be nothing that my children feel they should have to hide from me, whether they do drugs, whether they have sex, whether they get arrested, whether they get a ticket, whether they're failing their grades, whatever. Once conviction sets in, they should be able to
Yeah.
say, I got to go to
Well,
dad.
because it's hard to raise somebody,
I got to get this off my
a man of
chest.
integrity, if you don't have that same integrity. Part of having integrity is the ability for others to trust you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then I think just being the example, like we have to be super cautious um, of what our children
Mm-hmm.
see and hear from us because they're sponges. And the reality is they're going to watch every move we make. And, they're either going to make those same moves or at some point
Yeah.
they're going to shoot it in your face when you're trying to correct them and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, well, what about you? Oh, well, you don't do this or you did this or that, you know. And they're just trying to come into their own. They're trying to learn. They're trying to figure
Yeah.
life
We're
out.
here to guide them
So
for sure. And by
yeah,
example, I think is a big one. One of my buddies told me the other day, it's like
yeah,
if I,
yeah,
if I, he does jujitsu, his son does soccer. He said, I can't call out my butt, and he's a 12. He said, I can't call out my 12-year-old about his effort on the soccer field if I just quit jiu-jitsu or half-assed it, because he'll call me out on it. And I think
yes,
whether it's sports or life or
yep,
business or faith or anything else, if you're going to preach something, you better, you better be living it also. For sure.
yeah,
Well, I appreciate your
absolutely.
time, Paul. This has been super interesting. Tell people. So you're having a man camp coming up. This probably won't launch until after it's done.
Yeah.
But tell people how you can get a hold of your organization, learn more about you, and just kind of get the information they need to do.
Yeah, just truenorthman.com is our website. And then Paul Beam on Facebook, Paul
Okay.
Beam Official on Instagram. And of course, we have the True North Man podcast as well. If people want to tap in and tune into that, there's a True North Man.
And I'll put all the
podcast
links on
that
that.
they can,
And spoiler alert, I did Paul's podcast last week, so this is great. I love the opportunity that the two of us have to serve men in different parts of the community and in different avenues. Our networks are a little bit different, so to be able to maybe cross that over a little bit help. And I think that's great. So anything else you want to add to this interesting time to be a man?
Yeah, it certainly is interesting. I think I would add this, that there are probably a lot of men out there who are kind of aimlessly wandering about in life. They may not be real happy with their job, or maybe they're successful, but they're not super happy. They're not super fulfilled. And I would just say that there are three key components that I preach. Well, and one is a vision. We've got to have a clear vision for our life. Where do we want to go? What do we want in life? And then we have to know who we are. So our identity is super important. Everything we do, everything we think, everything we say is going to come from our identity, who we are at our core. Identity is the foundation. And then purpose. It's important that we're on a mission in life, that we're serving a purpose, that we're working with intent and with purpose. Otherwise, we start to feel depleted. We start to feel empty. We start to feel like life is a drag. So I think vision, identity, and purpose are super important key components for men to really wrap their minds around. And the last thing to attach it to purpose is you don't have to find your purpose. You create your purpose. It does take, there's a process. It takes some thought and intentionality, but we don't find our purpose. We create it. If you're trying to find your purpose, that's one reason why you're feeling depleted, is because you're spending so much energy trying to figure out where your purpose is. It's not a needle in a haystack. So I would say that you can find a little bit of hope and reprieve in the fact that your purpose is not to be found, it's to be created. And there's ways to do that very
because
easy.
it's not, that's that big, I need to go out and find myself. It's like, no, you probably can create the person that you want to be. You're right there. You don't have to find yourself. You're sitting there. Let's figure out how to be the best that you can be on your own. So I love the VIP concept. Purpose, I think, is something that because a lot of times men feel like their purpose is earn money or do this or all the have tos and tasks and it goes so far beyond that. And God made us to be so much more. I think it's something we can strive to really live out. First of all, create it, and then live out what our purpose is here. All right, Paul, absolutely. I appreciate you, man. Hope you have a great day, and I hope the man camp goes well, and you guys are able to touch some more lives and get some men on the right path.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it, Kevin.
If you're looking to really maximize your life and become the man you were made to be, head over to maxedoutman.com and get your journey started today.